Hey guys, 2022 XMR Sport. This video is primarily about changing this shifter cable right here. It was kind of a bear. We'll get into that in a minute. Let me give you a quick walk around and an update on this machine. So since I've got it, I put a new radiator in it. I replaced an axle because it was missing a clip and it was sliding out of the diff. The splines were a little jacked up. The radiator, put a new one because it overheated and the other one was corroded. So threw that in there, pulled the whole front clip off to do that. Changed all the fluids. I raised up the engine intake snorkel, but the biggest thing I did was throw in some 35-inch Aztecs. So these are the 35-inch Aztec XLs. For the ride at Boggin on the Plains Action Jackson Birthday Bash, I was running these 33s. It did great. These 33s are a little old, but the biggest problem was they had too much offset. They were sitting out here. So I wanted to get a narrower offset. These were 0 offset or 3.5, 3.5. I went with some 20-inch, 20 by 6.5 wheels with a 4 plus 2.5 offset. So that brought each tire in about an inch. And that means my track was 2 inches narrower than it was on the 33s, which I like it narrower. It steers better, keeps more factory geometry. I think it looks really mean. Let me get to you from the side view so you can appreciate how monstrosity this thing is on 35s. Now I just mounted those tires. They got 10 PSI in them, so they're probably like a little taller than 35 right now. I haven't rode it yet. We'll see if it scrubs. But yeah, so the tires are the biggest thing I did, and then crank up the preload 1/2 inch. You can see it was sitting about there. Now it's down to here. That made about an inch more ground clearance. So pretty mean. It's got like 18, 19 inches of rear ground clearance depending on how much it's squatting. So happy with that. To pull this interior part is kind of a bear. I'll walk you through it. But basically, if you want to change the shift cable, you got to pull this top piece. There's a screw here, 2 screws here. That comes out. Then you got to pull these 2 pieces. But before you do that, I'd recommend pulling the seats completely. Pop the bottoms out, slide the top off, then pull the seat frames if you want. That gives you more room to get the tunnel pieces out. I then pulled the seat support underneath that, and then pulled the plastic up on this side to get access to the cable routing and all the little clips that hold it. As far as adjusting it and stuff like that, it's really easy. You just want to make sure that when you're in neutral, your shift gate is centered about neutral. So yeah, that's a quick summary of how to do the shift cable. It's kind of a bear. I'll give you a little more detail here in a minute. But yeah, I've done a good amount of maintenance on this thing. It's only got 60 hours on it, but the previous owner did take it in some mud and water and let it sit. So that killed the shift cable. That required me to have to grease a lot of the splines, things like that. I had to put all new brakes on it. The brakes are metal to metal. So I did new rotors and pads in the front, brass pads in the rear. I like to do non-brass pads up front, like a real pad, like a centered pad, because I like more stopping power up front, especially in a machine I'm gonna haul ass with. So it's coming along pretty good. I'm really enjoying it, but I have been working on it a lot more than I would, say, like a Talon with 60 hours on it or a Pioneer with 60 hours on it. K&Ams are generally just a little higher maintenance. Pretty new machine, and it's kind of sad the cable's already as corroded as it is. It's a pretty common failure on these things, the Defenders and everything too. This is easier than the Defender. Defender, it's up on the dash. It's probably a nightmare. I haven't done one, but sure, it's more complicated. This is a shorter cable, but I still had to pull the seats, the seat support, the tunnel, the cover for the front cylinder head to get access to everything I wanted to get access to. If you want to do this right, you got to be able to get this cover right here up. So that's the little plastic clippy guy that holds the radiator hose, the radiator bleed port, the brake line, and that right there is your shift cable. So to get that routed back in the right spot, the only way to do it is to tear all this up, in my opinion. The skid plates don't come off very easy. They're riveted on. These 3 right here were also riveted on. So that's pretty annoying. I had to drill rivets to do this job. That's probably the dumbest thing about this XMR Sport. I like a lot of things about it. That riveting crap is nonsense. It does give me an excuse to check all my snorkels. You can see that this pipe is collapsed a good bit, but that's kind of just how it's molded. That's one of your belt intakes. Luckily there's 2. But yeah, that's how you get to your spark plug there and anything on the front of the motor. You can also get to your oil filter pretty easily down here. I'll probably do oil changes this way as well. Really wasn't bad to pull this cover off. Getting this off was some work. And there's your fuel tank. Made in the USA. Probably the only thing on here made in the USA. But yeah, so now that I got that undone, you're gonna do the bolt on the cable from this side. There's a nut that holds this on. You can pull it off that way. Don't lose the washer. Loosen up that 19 there, and then you can start getting the cable out. I should have enough room to do it all now. There's not a ton of space back here, but we'll make it work. Of course, that nut up there is on the opposite side, so you gotta get a wrench on it. Ratcheting wrench probably. It's gonna be the way to do that. Wish that went the other way. a little goofy Can-Am. Yeah, this is kind of an annoying job, not gonna lie. I cut this boot to see what was going on. Look at all the rust and growth in here. And this is not a very old unit. It's an XMR, it's designed to go in mud and water. And that boot just wasn't cutting it. A lot of times water gets in these cables prematurely. Kind of sad. Also, if you leave these tunnels off, look how much more legroom you have down here. Maybe I'll make something just to cover up this pipe, get the heat up from this radiator pipes off my passenger, but I kind of like it with just this thing sticking up. The tunnel is so hideous and goofy looking. All right, so once you get all the plastics out of your way, it's really not too bad of a job to route this cable. It's fairly short. So there's my new cable. I started out by getting it kind of sitting in the right location, floating on both ends. That way I could slide it back and forth and play with it. It's routed exactly like factory, so if I put the lines back in, you'll see how buried that cable was down there. It's behind all 3 coolant lines. So it comes down there through that little bracket. There was a zip tie right there. You had to cut that. I will add another one that holds it up from rubbing on stuff. And then it just runs straight back to the transmission. Back here. I was able to get to that nut by using a couple extensions. I'm not sure where I put them. I was able to come this way underneath the exhaust bracket through this hole with a wobble and get to the nut on the top of the lever here. So I didn't have to use a ratchet and sit there and dick with that for 20 minutes. Now, getting the adjustment is key, right? So look where your old cable is, that'll give you an idea. But you want it adjusted such that when you're in neutral, you can look at the shifter and it's centered on the gate around neutral. That's the same with pretty much all of these. No, I didn't read that in the manual. Yes, I'm just using common sense. But if you look at it, it goes right into reverse, right into high, and right into low, and then park. So I think I got it adjusted pretty good. There's neutral again, and you can see screen reads neutral, and it's centered right about neutral. Be very careful when you're putting the line in, the new shift cable, not to tear up the boot. So I went in this way, very carefully fed it through everything so nothing got hung up and punctures the boot. Make it last as long as you can, especially going in mud and water. Keeping these boots as intact as possible is very important. See, the boot did get slid down a little bit. It was kind of right there. Yeah, so hopefully I did a good job. This will last a while. I think it'll last at least another 3 years. Yes, it's a pain in the ass to have to drill these rivets out, but overall, it didn't really take me that long. I'm usually faster than your average bear, but this is my first time doing one of these, and it wasn't that bad. Now, also, if you're looking in here, question is, could you do the carrier bearing from right here? Maybe. There's a decent amount of space. This bracket's welded in, but there's bolts there, bolts there. I think I might try doing a carrier bearing this way before I pull the skid plate. I'm not sure. Eventually, I'll probably have to do the carrier bearing and upgrade a drive shaft and all that. But look how small the drive shaft is where it comes out of the motor. So the fact that these drive shafts are known to twist, it's probably a design feature to save that shaft, which is a lot harder to change. So yeah, now I just got to put all the plastics back in and go ride it. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. It shifts like butter now. It was so hard to shift before, and a sticky shift cable will cost you a transmission. Happens to Talon guys all the time. All right, here's a massive 35-inch Aztec XL on the scale. £48. Yeah, 25.9 pounds. It's ridiculous. All right, and they are 6.5 wide as advertised, which is good. I think the Aztecs look better on a 6.5. Saves a little bit of weight, maybe. Taking apart the front of an X3 is terrible. A Gen 2 4-wheeler, terrible. Gen 1, even worse. This is after I cleaned the machine from the outside, how much mud is still sitting up in this radiator. But the good news is, it wasn't hard to pull this whole front clip. It all comes off as one piece. So me and Marshall were trying to figure out how this come apart. And I start pulling it apart and I realized the way it's all pre-wired, the headlights all come to one connector. And that was a clue that you could pull all up together. So that front frame support, these two orange pieces, the headlights, the fenders, the side pieces all come off as one unit like that. So far my $65 eBay radiator is installing well. This clamp went on okay, it was a little tight, but this clamp down here, you could not get the factory hose clamp, spring clamp on it. It's too close to the fan shroud. So instead of cutting the fan shroud, I just put a regular screw type hose clamp, which is thinner, fit fine. Basically, on the aftermarket radiator, this pipe is slightly over that way, which for the X3 probably doesn't matter, but it definitely matters on this one. What's up, guys? I just threw in a couple other clips I had from when I did the Radiator. All these videos are up on Patreon the minute I do them. I just decided to throw those in this video to help out people that have an XMR Sport and are trying to do the similar mud maintenance that I'm doing.